And it's Ken Kraetzer for CBSIServices, talking business today at the Business Council of Westchester. Great session, power breakfast. One of the speakers was Elena Rivera-Cheek, who's the Chief Creative Officer, owner, Copy&Art Advertising, based here in White Plains. Elena, great to see you. What were some of the highlights of the session for you?
Thank you, Ken. Some of the highlights for us were around the diversity of information and kind of expertise on the panel. It was really interesting to see creative agencies and video experts and SEO and people that could really add value to the audience, which is always our objective.
Well, you had a good point. That was number one. We always say is you got to fall in love with your customers, and everything's about your customers rather than your products and services. How do you make that? How are you effective at doing that in your creative approaches?
Well, yeah, that's a great point. I think that's a big problem for business. Small and medium-sized businesses often fall in love with their product. And really, if you're falling in love with your client, that means you're listening first. You have to stop and hear what they need. That might be something that's a surround sound approach to whatever you're offering now. And then they'll tell you what they need. And if that's something that your business or brand can evolve to become for them, you have that much more traction. It also helps ensure that you don't become a dinosaur.
You talked a little bit about integration of channels and branding so that you have a consistent visibility on different channels. We see that all the time, especially when customers are trying to find you and they see you in one media and they're trying to get to your website. How do you do that? Keep consistent branding across different channels?
Well, I think the most important thing and the reason why maybe we were able to add value today is because we're an agency that understands all of the platforms and all of the areas. And so we may not be able to execute in every parameter, but we understand web, we do it. We make sure that that aligns to social, that aligns to any other initiative, including print or journal advertising that you're doing. But it's really important, and more so now than ever, that you're authentic and you're consistent and you're on brand.
And you talked a nice story about that walking around Disney World. Everyone is still looking at their mobile phones. The tremendous impact the last 5 years of mobile and the amount of attention that people give to their mobile phones and the amount of advertising and the apps that are there. How do you effectively use mobile today since it's really driving so much of marketing communications?
So one of the panelists, John, was really good about talking about data, and I think that really when you marry effective creative that is going to be bold and eye-catching or just really represent your brand well with the data that, for instance, digital allows us to obtain now, gone are the days where you just looked at reach in print. Now you could get analytics around a digital campaign that were never possible before. So really hitting them where they are, I think, and then understanding them maybe well enough to know where they're going is a really good way to approach your creative communications.
Elaine, if you would tell us a little bit about Copy&Art, your agency here in White Plains, some of the services that you provide.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, we're based in the heart of Westchester, White Plains, and really we have big agency experience from New York City, but we decided to bring that into Westchester because, there's an opportunity here for businesses to maximize their creative output without having to go into New York City. So we do everything from web and all sorts of digital communications to traditional mediums like print, journals, brochures. We really run the gamut, and I think that's the benefit of a full-service agency.
Well, I always like to ask my guests a little bit about the path of their careers. What have been some of the key stops for you along the way?
So I think the key stops were definitely big agency advertising in New York City and kind of learning what clients loved about a big agency brand experience and what they hated, and then creating an agency that could really take what they loved and leave what they hated. And that's what we did here with efficiencies and creative output and really forward-thinking creatives that serve their brand every day.
Very good. Elena Rivera-Cheek, who is the Chief Creative Officer and owner of Copy&Art Advertising Agency here in White Plains. Great to see you. Learn a lot from you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ken.
Pleasure. This is Ken Kraetzer for CBSIServices, talking business in Tarrytown, New York.